Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. I'm Shamela Pula and here's what we have in the bulletin. Former Education Minister proposes cluster boards to depoliticize school governance. Residents seek answers in alleged fatal police shooting in Manchester. And later in sports, reggae girls defeat Peru in second friendly. Now the details. Former Education Minister Ronald Thwaites is advocating for cluster boards to oversee schools. Mr. Thwaites says this is likely to eliminate concerns about politically appointed boards. Detail in this report. The controversy surrounding St. James High School has sparked concerns about politically appointed school boards. The principal and board chairman's disagreement caused major disruptions, drawing attention from stakeholders, including former Education Minister Ronald Thwaites.
School board chairman should be appointed after a consensus was arrived between the Member of Parliament. If you are responsible for the schools in your constituency, you must have a say, but not the final say, not the only say. I thought that the Member of Parliament, the education officer, and the principal should get together and determine who was the best person to serve the office of chair of the board.
Mr. Thwaites proposes cluster boards to oversee schools. He says this will eliminate concerns about politicized governance and promote a more neutral, student-centered approach.
I thoroughly agree that the provisions already existing for cluster boards where those are most appropriate. And remember, we have so many schools now and limited talent and people with interest, time and zeal to serve as board members and particularly as chairpersons, that in many cases the cluster board could take away from the unsuitable choice that oftentimes creates conflict.
The former Education Minister further elaborated on the concept of cluster boards.
Particularly in special education, or if you had schools in a particular vicinity, bearing in mind the geography of our country and where our settlement, it would be perfectly reasonable, it seems to me, if you could get one well-intentioned, well-capable board for 3 or 4 schools. It may well also be that schools that are owned by a particular a church or trust might find it suitable to have and to have a board that served both of them.
As the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, probes another police fatal shooting, this time in Mollis, Manchester, residents have their own questions about why their neighbor was killed. As Krista Campbell reports, the police say they were shot at and took a gun from the scene of the shooting.
Police, soldiers, and the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM. It's more security officials than residents of what's being described as the usually quiet community of Mollison near Christiana, Manchester could take Wednesday morning. About 5:15, the security forces went to the area as part of targeted operations to restore law and order in a parish that's been grappling with a crime upsurge for months now.
A team armed with a warrant went to a premises in Christiana. On entering the premises, they were confronted by a man who was armed with a firearm. The man pointed the firearm in their direction. The police, in defense of their lives, responded by firing in his direction. The man was eventually hit and was subsequently taken to the Percy Junior Hospital, where he was pronounced dead.
He's been identified as 55-year-old bodyman Richard Evans. Deputy Superintendent Kerry Duncan says a Glock 40 semi-automatic pistol was taken from the scene, but residents have questions.
All community people need to know why he was shot, because all the while they come and they let him out and take him and carry him back, and without no charges, and we don't know what's happening, so we need to know what's happening.
They say he was a good mechanic in the community and a beloved neighbor.
He's not a warmonger. People them try to help everybody in the community. If a problem in the community, try to fix it with the young guys. Them even if you vex with each other, try to put us together. We all in the community are grieving for see what happened to Richard this morning. even the baby suckling on the breast who know Richard, if they know that he died, they are going to grieve.
The police say they made several arrests of persons suspected of robbery during their targeted operations elsewhere in Manchester. Meanwhile, DSP Duncan stressed that curfews will continue to be used as one way to manage the spate of crime in the parish.
It is not our wish to limit the movement of anyone within the parish. However, where we find we have issues where crime and disorder is taking place, then as a police force, we have to respond.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
Vendors who occupy the St. Anne's Bay Market are describing as a public health disaster their current working conditions. They're also taking the St. Anne Municipal Corporation to task over how the issue is being dealt with. Prince Moore reports.
Well-needed construction work is ongoing at the St. Anne's Bay Market, but vendors are frustrated because they say they're being forced to remain in the facility during the process. They contend the St. Anne Municipal Corporation and the police have denied their request to temporarily sell their wares on the streets.
We're not doing no business in the market, none at all. Nobody coming in the market. And from them remove it from the first time. I am the one inside the market. I go up there and I beg them how much time to give me a hammer. Them say them can't give me, tell me if I go out there.
I don't have no other way to go to sell it, and I can't sell it on the street. So it's here, then say I must sell it. So I have to abide by them rule and them law. For me, it cannot sell on the street like yam, potato and that thing. Meat have to have a separate, clean environment if you look after it.
Chief Engineering Officer for the St. Anne Municipal Corporation, Glenford Ricketts, explained the area under construction is an unoccupied section of the market, and once completed, vendors will be allowed to move to the renovated space.
I don't believe that the statements of the vendors are true, because the work that I've started have commenced on Monday of this week. And if you see, we have been moving hastily to get the section that we have started to complete and to move the vendors to this section of the market while we focus on another section.
Just days ago, the police ordered vendors who'd relocated to the streets back in the market. The lawmen are adamant that street-side vending will not be allowed in the already congested town. People's National Party MP candidate for St. Anne North East, Dr. Ryan Simpson, says while he understands the urgent need for the rehabilitation of the market, the vendors' concerns cannot be ignored.
Doing the right thing, I think the municipal corporation is making steps to do the right thing. We have to take responsibility for the fact that we have allowed the market to be in the condition it has been where it's right now. The meat market, meat and fish market, for example, I am appalled that people are going to buy consumable food from that space. For you to ask the vendors, the human beings, to stay inside here, is not always what you're seeing. But there are things that are happening in the atmosphere that will still have an impact on your health.
Prince Moore, TVJ News.
In the meantime, local government Minister Desmond McKenzie announced that vendors in St. Thomas will soon be able to temporarily return to the Yalas market. During a recent tour of the facility, he acknowledged the vendors' frustrations and expressed a desire to assist.
Once we clean up the place, and if there are those of them outside who would be willing to come in temporarily while we do what is necessary, we will allow them to come in until we do what is necessary to take them off the streets, to give them at least a proper foundation, a proper location for vending.
He also highlighted the plans he has for the market.
This is ideal as a market because it gives you natural lighting and it has all the facets of what a market ought to be like. And the concept is to provide not just market space for vegetables and other, but also for haberdashery and for food, which is also an important part of the trade within Yalas and the adjacent communities.
As the Trump administration continues to tighten its grip on illegal immigrants in the U.S., a suggestion from Prime Minister Andrew Holness that deportations, whether from the U.S. or other countries, may have some positive effects. The details in this report. Around 20,000 Jamaicans have been deported from the U.S. over the past decade. A significant number of the deportees have criminal convictions. But with the Trump administration also targeting illegal immigrants, many have been worried. But according to Prime Minister Andrew Holness, the deportation of Jamaicans may not be entirely negative.
Because some of the people who are going to come back, they were working in hotels. They got exposed to giving service on an international platform. Some of them may have been working in IT. Some of them have been exposed to other skills and technologies that we should really try to reintegrate them into the society. There are also some demographic issues that we have to pay attention to. Jamaica is a fairly young population, but you know what? We're an aging population. And can you imagine that we're at the point where we're going to say that we need more labor?
Mr. Holness says Jamaica's focus is on expanding the economy and creating opportunities for citizens to thrive at home. He says this will later reduce the need to seek better fortunes abroad.
What the government is trying to do is to create the economy so that you can make it in Jamaica. So, listen man, the next decade for Jamaica is when everybody's going to be begging us to come to their country. Because we have the tech skills, they see our people as law-abiding, hard-working, efficient and productive, and they're going to want us to come, and they're going to remove all the visas. And at that time, we will say, no, Jamaica, the place of choice, to live, work, raise families, do business, and retire in paradise. You come instead.
Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith has been actively lobbying other governments to secure visa-free access for Jamaicans. This push for free visa access is part of a broader effort to strengthen Jamaica's economy and global relationships.
The Jamaica of today is a different Jamaica. When visa-free access was withdrawn from us, it was a time when we were a different country. We have digitized the security in our passports so that fraud is now practically impossible. Our participation in Interpol and AP systems and exchanges of information and travel information is now so deep and embedded that there's no need to fear a Jamaican citizen.
A local clergyman has reacted to the World Bank's report on education in the Caribbean. The World Bank recently criticized the performance of education in the Caribbean and its implications for economic development within the region.
After all, while we must turn the spotlight on the poor quality of education in our region, and we must as a church take cognizance of what is often described as the apartheid nature of education in the region. Nevertheless, we must keep in mind that good things are happening.
He pointed to a CARICOM report which he thinks paints a somewhat different picture.
There's an article on the CARICOM website entitled 4 CARICOM Countries in Pilot Project to Improve Access to Technical and Vocational Education and Training, TVET. The article focuses on work being done in Jamaica and 3 other CARICOM territories to do as the title suggests, improve access to education. One reason I point to this article is the focus on technology. And so what the article suggests is that the future for technical vocational education and training is bright. And so if I get a chance, I'd like to point the World Bank to that article.
It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. 79-year-old Solomon Brown from Emsom City, Spanish Town, St. Catherine, is missing. Mr. Brown is about 5 feet 8 inches tall. He also walks leaning forward with hands behind him. If you see or know Mr. Brown's whereabouts, please call the Spanish Town Police at 876-984-2305, 119, or the nearest police station. It's now time for the Business Minute.
The National Water Commission says it has written off a net amount of $100 million in receivables or monies owed to it under the current amnesty. This because it wrote off a gross amount of $200 million but collected an outstanding amount of $100 million. Under the amnesty, eligible residential customers who have been disconnected for 6 months or more will benefit from a 50% reduction in the amounts owed, as well as from waiver of the reconnection fees if they settle the remaining 50% of the bill. Further afield, Nvidia exceeded Wall Street's expectations as it closed out 2024 posting stunning sales and profit growth. The chip-making giant on Wednesday released its earnings report for the quarter ended in January. It showed Nvidia raked in nearly $40 billion in the January quarter. This is 78% higher than the same period in the prior year. For the full fiscal year, Nvidia's profits more than doubled to $74 billion. The company says it's also expecting continued growth in the current quarter. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Carrie-Ann Simpson.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, Governor Cora Richardson Hodge will be sworn in as Angola's first female premier after her party, the Angola United Front AUF, won a landslide victory in Wednesday's election. The AUF secured 8 out of 11 seats, including all 4 at-large positions. The Angola Progressive Movement APM won 3 seats, with Premier Dr. Ellis Webster among the victors. Leader of the Angola United Front AUF, Richardson Hodge, thanked voters for their support and promised to work for the people of Angola. On the international scene, U.S. President Donald Trump stated that he would not stop tariffs, emphasizing the severe impact of fentanyl entering the U.S. through Mexico and Canada. He highlighted that millions of people have died due to fentanyl, which primarily comes from China. Trump also noted that while it is now harder to cross the border, the damage has already been done. He confirmed that tariffs will continue with the exact implementations starting on April 2nd instead of April 1st due to his superstition. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Anthony Atkinson, TVJ News.
It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return.